Senator Elizabeth Warren is taking aim at mega mergers. Bloomberg reports the 2020 presidential hopeful is drafting legislation calling on regulators to probe roughly 20 years of these previous monster acquisitions and halt any deals like them moving forward. It reportedly includes companies that generate more than $40 billion in annual revenue, or when both businesses have sales surpassing $15 billion, though there would be exceptions for companies in financial distress. But obviously, the target of these companies, or setting it up like that, would be the big tech giants of the world that she's been bashing and threatening to break up. Google and Facebook, among the likes.
I mean, it makes sense. Again, to your point, she's been threatening to, she wants to break up big tech. It makes sense that she was going to try to create legislation to prevent these big tech companies from even existing in the first place, right? So
growing even bigger.
Right. You have to take it to its genesis, I guess. And I think she's actually going to be going back and investigating like the last 2 decades to see how some of these mergers happened to prevent them from happening in the future.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when we talk about it, it's kind of shifting. Again, this is just a draft of legislation, that hasn't even been approved or anything like that. It certainly hasn't been brought to the floor for a vote. But I mean, when we're looking at it, it's interesting because it's kind of a shift in the way that they have traditionally looked at mega mergers. When you think about what are the harms to consumers and what might impact prices when we're dealing with monopolies here, this is kind of shift that to look at how entrepreneurs and other businesses are impacted as well. So it's a change to the rules, basically, in thinking about, is it just about consumers?
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of what brought this on is that Warren and other people have noticed that financial regulation of banking has eased since some of the initial new rules were put in place back in 2008, and that people want to make sure that 2007, 8, and 9 doesn't happen again, and that investors are going to be able to be more secure in investing in some of these big banks as well as the retail consumer and clients.
I mean, to me, we've talked about this before when she was threatening to break up Facebook and, Amazon and all of these things. I mean, I could see when we're talking about Amazon, the idea of selling their own products through the platform might actually be harmful when we think about product quality and pricing. When we talk about Instagram and Facebook, I mean, outside of, I guess, the data problems there and kind of not knowing what companies have on you or how they're using the data is one thing, but I'm not entirely sold on across the board saying that a lot of these mega mergers or big companies are necessarily harmful to the consumer.
So here's what's really interesting, actually. Some of these big tech companies actually exist because of antitrust regulations going after Microsoft in the early 90s. And Microsoft actually being taken down a peg was actually what allowed some of these other companies to grow and flourish. And I think what Elizabeth Warren is saying here, well, no, she has said this, is that these big companies, their very existence means that new entrepreneurs cannot rise up and create their own businesses. Other small businesses are suffering because of these large, massive corporations. And we've heard this a lot, particularly, for example, with Amazon, that other small businesses just cannot compete with Amazon's marketplace. And so she wants to make sure that other businesses, other entrepreneurs can get their shot and grow their business as well.
The other piece of the legislation as well, when we talk about big tech companies, Uber being one of those, is kind of positioning, strengthening, I should say, the gig workers at some of these companies
allowing
as well.
them to unionize.
Allowing Uber workers, contractors, workers, depending on which state you're in, to unionize and battle big tech power that way. But again, just a similar theme that we've heard from Elizabeth Warren throughout the race and now kind of leading it with legislation, delivering on her campaign promise to battle some of these big tech companies. Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.